telecommunications network. The United States doesn't want its allies using the technology from the Chinese firm over concerns about its close ties with the Chinese government. Priti Patel, though, says discussions are ongoing at both National Security Council level and within Cabinet.
My role is very much to protect the national security of our country, and that also includes intelligence services and communications as well. And I'm not going to comment on speculation in newspapers. These are very important discussions. We will continue, and I will continue to work to and promote the national security of our nation.
Figures suggest the average house price has increased by almost £135,000 during the past decade. Across the UK, that figure was up by 69%. For London, the increase was 103%. LBC weather: rain in the west, moving east, leaving sunny spells behind. Wintry showers across the northwest of Scotland, a high of 10 degrees. From Global's Newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
I've got my own place now, Money. My parents put up the 10% security. And when I keep up my repayments, they get it back with interest in 5 years from Barclays. And now we can do whatever we want. Right, Dave? We don't have to tiptoe up the stairs. I can paint the living room purple. Don't look at me like that, Money. It's my house. Barclays Family Springboard Mortgage. Make money work for you.
Your home may be repossessed if mortgage payments are missed. Deposit returned with interest after 5 years if no repayments missed. Subject to application, financial circumstances and borrowing history. T's and C's apply.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. It's a big week for the government. They've got some really big decisions to make over the 5G network. There is a huge growing row over the cost of HS2 and whether they should cut it. But of more immediacy is the coronavirus crisis. We don't know. We think about 300 Brits that are stuck in China. The Americans and French appear to be rushing to get their people out. British government vacillated, I think, to be fair, for a couple of days, but maybe now they're going to be brought back home. But I wonder, through all of this, and certainly when you see President Xi of China warning of a grave situation, I wonder whether we really all know what this coronavirus is and just how serious this could or could not be. So let's start at the very beginning of all of this. Let's find out, what is the coronavirus and how does it spread? And who better could I possibly have to discuss this with than Professor Hugh Pennington, Emeritus Professor of Bacteriology at the University of Aberdeen, and somebody who's dealt with and talked about these crises before. Hugh, very, very good morning to you.
Hello, yes.
Please do explain to LBC listeners exactly what this coronavirus is.
Well, it's a new virus in the sense we've never seen it before. It's a member of a family of viruses which we're reasonably familiar with. We've heard of SARS, we've heard of MERS, a third, roughly speaking, of the common cold are caused by coronaviruses in this family of viruses. So we know quite a lot about the general kind of properties of these viruses. The common cold ones and this one in China seems to be spread primarily by the respiratory route. That is, somebody who's infected coughs up some spit, basically, that's got the virus in it. Somebody else quite close by breathes it in and sets up an infection, usually in the back of the throat, the lungs, and so on. We don't know precisely yet because we haven't seen that. We've only been studying the virus for a month, so give us a chance. Anyway, that seems to be the main route of transmission. Some other coronaviruses cause sort of gastrointestinal symptoms, but this one doesn't seem to be in that frame at all. So the only way you can stop it, basically, is by keeping infected people away from uninfected people, because nobody has any immunity because it's a brand new virus. There isn't a sort of population immunity against it like with some flu strains. They're new, but they're not that new, and, there's a residual immunity. This doesn't seem to be the case with this one as far as we know. But again, we're working on that to find out.
And each of these seems to emanate from the same part of the world. It all seems to come from China.
Well, I suppose we thought that the next flu outbreak, the next flu pandemic would start in China, because they usually do, just because there's such a lot of folk living in China. It's a very significant minority of the world population, and so that's fair enough. And traditionally, Chinese people have lived quite close to animals, farm animals, and sometimes they eat wild animals as well, unusual ones that we don't eat here in the UK. So that's those are some of the factors. Well, of course, the swine flu thing started in Mexico, so it proved us to be wrong on where it was going to happen, where it was going to start. But SARS started in China. MERS, which is nastier than SARS, and SARS is nastier than this virus as far as we can tell. MERS is associated with camels in Arabia. So, one has to be obviously saying, well, it's reasonable that it starts in China because there are so many people living there, and perhaps it's the way that some of the people have, the diets that some people have been having, which has exposed them to a new virus, and then the virus itself has perhaps changed to enable it to move from an animal, perhaps through two different animals, to humans, and then once it gets into humans, it's changed so that it can spread from human to human. And of course, the big worry for the Chinese authorities is that it gets going in China, spreading from person to person, nothing to do with food, and but that's what they're trying to stop.
Yes, and they've taken
all the measures they've got to stop this spread.
They've taken some pretty radical measures. It looks like sort of much of the Hubei province is effectively quarantined off. Difficult though to get accurate news reports from China. We here this morning have asked people living in Wuhan, would they come on the radio and talk about it? And there's sort of a slight fear of talking to foreign media. Do we have any genuine idea of the extent of this problem?
Well, genuine is the key word here.
Yeah.
We have the official data, and we have to rely on that. And full marks to the Chinese this time, unlike SARS, where they were very slow in declaring, the problem, and the virus got going before we knew that it was doing bad things. This time they've been very open. They've sequenced the virus, the genome of the virus, which means that we can have a laboratory test internationally. All you have to know is the actual sequence. Then you can develop a test within an hour or two, which is what Public Health England have done, for example. They've got a lab test which can tell whether somebody has got an infection with the virus or not, and so on. So the Chinese have been pretty open about it, and I think the fact that the president has come out saying, "Oh, bad, this is a hard time," I think that's significant in the sense that means it less likely that they'll be doing any kind of massaging the data or anything like that. It may well be the other way around. They're certainly very open in terms of the information that's coming out. We haven't seen some of the details we'd like to see, but that's because we've only been studying. They've only been studying it for a month.
Of course,
it's a fantastic rate of progress in terms of what we know and so on. But we still have many unanswered questions, just because the virus has only been around since the end of last year.
And how long does it take to develop vaccines against a virus like this?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think most experts who are in the vaccine field would say it would take at least a year to develop a vaccine because you have to do the research to actually develop a vaccine strain, and then you have to test it for safety, and then you have to test it for efficacy. How does it work? And those are all those take time. And we've tried with other coronaviruses to make vaccines, and it's proved to be a bit tricky. One or two of the experimental vaccines didn't work at all, and some of them actually, there were problems associated with them. So not a straightforward process. I don't think we can say, oh yeah, we'll have a vaccine in 3 months' time or whatever it is, and that will solve the problem. I think that would be far, far too optimistic. That doesn't mean to say there might not be a vaccine. That doesn't mean to say that one is not being looked at right now, which it is. But I think one has to be a bit pessimistic about it being the answer to the problem. Let's put it like that in terms of the current crisis. Of course, if the virus got well established and it spread worldwide, then the pressure to have a vaccine and the pressure to do the research would obviously be very great. And I think at the end of the day, a vaccine would be developed, but it might take quite a long time.
Yeah, now we're told there are about 300 UK residents living in the city of Wuhan, and I know the Americans and French have been getting people out. Would it be a sensible thing for the UK government to fly these 300 people back to the United Kingdom, or would that bring quite serious risks?
I do. Yes, I think in a sense, yes, it would be a sensible thing because clearly the British government has got to look after its citizens in foreign countries. I mean, it's one of the things that one expects the government to do. And the people living in Wuhan and surrounding area are, in the frame for picking up the virus. We don't know enough to say, oh yes, just because you've been sitting at home or staying in a hotel, you're not going to be exposed to it. We don't know. So, all we do know is that being in Wuhan raises the risk of catching the virus. So the sensible thing to do is to offer these people, rapid movement out of China, out of Wuhan, and back home. And actually, from the epidemiological point of view, from the public health point of view, absolutely no problem, because we'll know who these people are because we're offering them seats on a chartered plane, almost certainly.
Yes.
Everybody on the plane will know what the problem is. They'll be given appropriate protective advice and all that kind of thing. And we'll know who the people are, where they live, so we'll be able to track them and make sure that if they do get infected, have they been infected with the coronavirus? Because so far some people who've been in Wuhan, who've been tested, some UK citizens, and came back to the UK before the travel restrictions were put on by the Chinese, turned out to have had flu. It's as simple as that. And, it is the flu season after all. So from the public health point of view, no problem. We'd know who the people are, and we'd be able to track them, give them appropriate advice, tell them we could even put them in a hotel when they came back if we wanted,
Yeah.
I mean, not a difficult thing to do. Remember Thomas Cook, there was a massive...
We got a lot of people home then, didn't we? Yes, we did.
It is possible to do this kind of thing at quite short notice, and I don't think that the public at large in the UK would be put at any risk at all. Far better to do it officially than to let it happen unofficially. Far better to protect the public in the UK. So I don't think it would increase the risk to the public in the UK at all.
OK, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning here on LBC. Well, that was Professor Hugh Pennington, Emeritus Professor of Bacteriology at the University of Aberdeen, and somebody whose voice we've heard before on outbreaks, disease, and, he thinks the Chinese government are being relatively straight this time. The fact that the Chinese president describes the situation as grave is perhaps unusual for a Chinese government, and he said absolutely it would be the right thing to do to fly the 300 British people out there in Wuhan home. He says that would not be a great risk. Is this what Boris Johnson should do? Do you think Boris should be decisive and get these 300 people back to the United Kingdom as quickly as possible? I would have thought, particularly given that it's a low-risk thing to do, as Hugh Pennington just said, that it's absolutely what he ought to do. He's got other big decisions this week too, though. The row over 5G and Huawei, and we'll talk a little bit later on in the hour about that, and also some whistleblowers overnight on HS2. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC this Sunday morning, and it's 10:15.
This is LBC.
The personal history of David Copperfield is now a BAFTA nominee and a winner of 5 BIFA Awards, including Best Screenplay and Best Supporting Actor Hugh Laurie.
That's good to hear.
From the acclaimed director of The Death of Stalin.
What do we do with him? If I were you, I'd wash him.
Don't miss David Copperfield in cinemas now.
Have you ever seen a ghost? Do you believe in the supernatural? Inside this weekend's Mail on Sunday, You Magazine's paranormal special issue, packed with hair-raising stories. A night in Britain's most haunted house, what the tarot card reader saw, the children who say they have psychic powers. Free paranormal special magazine, only inside the Mail on Sunday.
What van carries over a tonne? What van has class-leading fuel economy? What van? The answer's in the question. The What Van Light Van of the Year 2020. The Vauxhall Combo Cargo. Limited stock now available for only £199 a month and £199 initial rental, excluding 20% VAT on a 2-year lease. Other rental periods available. Search Combo Cargo offer and hurry down to your local retailer. Vauxhall carries British business. Business users only. Initial rental of $198.98 plus 23 months at $198.98. Contract hire on Combo Cargo Edition L1 1.5 Turbo D 100 PS. 20,000 total contracted miles. Limited availability, subject to status. T's and C's, 18 plus. Price excludes 20% VAT. You will not own the vehicle. Vauxhall Finance PLC. Trading as free to move lease.
Fly with Cathay Pacific and arrive ready to make the most of the endless white beaches of Bali. Book now at cathaypacific.com. Cathay Pacific. Move beyond.
I am a force for good.
I am a force for courage.
And for calm.
I am a force for safety.
For fairness.
For leadership.
I am a force for the future.
For compassion.
For my community.
I am a police officer.
And I am a force for all.
Be one of the 20,000 new police officers and be a force for all that you believe in. Search Join the Police.
Don't miss the month-end sale at Oak Furnitureland with huge savings on solid hardwood furniture. Online and in-store now, but must end Sunday.
It's creeping ever closer. The 31st of January deadline for filing your tax return is just days away. It's time to act. Download EY Tax Chat now and connect with EY tax professionals to prepare and submit your tax return from just £329. Beat the deadline with minimal effort and maximum confidence. Search or download EY Tax Chat now.
Critics adore BAFTA nominee David Copperfield.
This calls for a celebration.
It's impossible to resist, says The Guardian.
Tell me another one.
It's wonderfully unexpected, says The Telegraph, featuring an all-star cast, including Dev Patel, Tilda Swinton, Hugh Laurie, Peter Capaldi, and Ben Whishaw.
It thrills me to the stomach.
David Copperfield, in cinemas now.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
President Xi of China warns that it's a grave situation as the infection spreads. Coronavirus is taking a hold. The death toll is going up. There are confirmed cases as close by as France, and people in this country currently being looked at. Around about 2,000 people have come back from Wuhan in the last couple of weeks. Some have come back, I think, for Chinese New Year, the celebrations of which are taking place here in London today. Now, my next caller is Paul Martin from Hong Kong. Paul, we've spoken before. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, Nigel, and let me wish you and your listeners a belated Happy New Year.
Well, thank you. Now, Paul, we've spoken before when you, as a foreign correspondent, about the protests, etc. Now, I spoke this morning, Paul, to a family member who lives in Hong Kong, and he said the whole place is absolutely deserted, and there is he felt a genuine sense of fear. What's your reading of how Hong Kong is viewing this?
Well, I've been here nearly a year with members of my family. I cover the whole of Asia-Pacific area for the world media, as you probably know. Yep. And there are things I can tell you that this terrible virus is likely to go apocalyptic, I get the word right, very shortly. They're trying to cover it up. The people in Hong Kong are really angry with Carrie Lam. I hope they don't throw me out for saying this, because that border...
well, Paul, they might do. They might well do, because I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased you're on the line.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to speak today to expats in Wuhan, etc., and they were all very, very, very concerned about coming on the radio and talking to foreign media. So your feeling, Paul, is this is worse than they're saying, yeah?
Much worse. And there's never been a case. It's almost like a laboratory experiment which has gone wild. Like a military thing. Now, I'm not being melodramatic. Like you, I've been in the media all my life. Someone has to tell the truth. I'm British. I want to tell you and the British people the truth. This border here in Hong Kong, because it's the special, arrangement where they have autonomy, should have been closed by Carrie Lam. Like she takes orders from the boss in Beijing. So everybody's saying that. There's two experienced doctors who are experts just dropped dead in Wuhan. You've probably heard about that. Just dropped dead after working on this. And there are members of the hospital staff, Nigel, that are dropping on the floor. That doesn't sound like the flu to me. It's much worse. There are people usually get 60 million visitors a year. I'm looking out at the downtown Hong Kong now in Wan Chai from my hotel. It's like a graveyard. There's hardly anybody.
Yeah,
I went out before.
Yeah.
People are terrified.
Yeah.
And the government is trying to play it down, including other governments. Oh, that's all right. It'll calm down. You and I know better, Nigel.
Yeah,
it's
but it's
really bad.
But if people are stuck at home, and from what we can make out in Wuhan, people are stuck at home, and from what and you've absolutely confirmed what I got from my family member earlier on this morning. Yep. I mean, there comes a point after a couple of days where people have to go out and buy food and things like that. So people can't live in self-imposed quarantine forever, can they?
No, I'm eating chocolate biscuits and whatever's left in my coffee. I went to 7 food stores in 2 days. They're all closed early. And when I went to McDonald's, which is terrible food, I hope I'm not saying anything about any of the sponsors. But
well, it's all a matter of opinion, Paul. It's all a matter of taste. But go on.
All right. And there's usually 12, 15 staff there. There was like 3 people there, and the manager looked at me and said, sorry, very sorry. They say that in Hong Kong. I had to wait 38 minutes for a fish burger.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not exaggerating, Nigel. Honestly, it is like something out of one of those King movies, like the zombie thing. And people are saying, the government will always say, oh, it's not that bad. We're on the way. It's not all right. It is that bad. And you've got thousands of these people all over the United Kingdom that when they arrived at Heathrow, they just said, if you feel sick, give us a call.
I was astonished that plane that came in the other day from Wuhan and all they got given was a leaflet, no health checks. I thought it was appalling. Paul, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning from Hong Kong. And that's 2 people today I've spoken to telling me that Hong Kong is a ghost town. The shops are closed. There's nobody out and there is a genuine sense of fear. And I think the point that Carrie Lam, the Hong Kong people would like her to have shut the border with the mainland, she didn't do it. John is a new caller from Beijing. Good morning, John.
Hi, Nigel. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, I should say good evening, shouldn't I?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
7 here.
So, what's the state of play in Beijing itself, John?
Well, I'm in the province north of Beijing. I'm here for the Chinese New Year with my partner's family.
Yes.
Now, I've lived here a long time, and I speak the language. I work in a Chinese company, the state-run company. I can tell you, there's fear on the streets. I've never seen a place so quiet. Usually, China's pretty, they use a word called "run" now, which means lively, hustle and bustle.
Yes.
And it's eerily quiet. On the plane, it was quiet. Everybody is wearing a mask, and I mean everybody. And where you see them on the streets, I think there's some. In some ways, it's a bit unwarranted. In other ways, it's people just don't know what will happen, and the rate of increase is of course worrying people.
Yes, and John, in terms of the President Xi describing it as a grave situation, do people, in your view, think the Chinese government is being straight with people?
Look, I read the Western media every day. I mean, all the time, and I can tell you there's a lot of misinformation. People seem to jump on the one side or the other. They come down on that there's been cover-ups and so on. Now, I can tell you, for example, right now in the last 5 minutes, information does come through. The main seller here in China is called Taobao. It's basically like the Amazon or the eBay of China.
Yeah.
Now, they have hotlines to report if anybody is trying to profit from, the masks and so on, where you can phone in and there's a blanket ban across the country of raising prices. The information is on the street. It's everywhere. It's in the hotels. You get it across, our apps. You do get it. And I think it's been unfair. I think originally did it start off as information wasn't given out? Possibly. However, you must admit a lot of this, what we have to realise is that Beijing is a central government. And, local governments may not be all that particularly keen on, sort of volunteering information back up to Beijing. So there will be some sort of delay and so on.
Of course.
I generally think so. I heard you mention the other day about it's slightly unrelated, but we talked about pollution yesterday, and that the pollution in China is more than what did you say? America, Spain,
what I talked about, John, what I talked about was output of CO2 and methane, and I made the point that China's output is bigger than America, the European Union, and Japan added together. I mean, it's a huge country, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. But I mean, like, it's not. I want to come in and sort of, deny that. Of course it is. But what I would say is, it's more complex than people realise. Like, for example, on that, say the pollution. I know moving off it, but on it more emphasises that. Well, for example, the pollution in China, the population, of course, is greater than all those three countries put together. And Beijing, in the time I've been there, has changed rapidly. So now I know I'm moving on to a different.
You are slightly, John, and it's you are slightly, but no.
But what I want to mention to you, Nigel, it comes back to that things are changing. So when we relate back to the SARS virus of 2003, it was a different situation then, and things are changing. Is it perfect? No, not at all. But, people are helping each other out. I mean, there's information, people handing out masks on the street here.
John, there's no question, and Hugh Pennington, who was on earlier, made this point, that compared with 2003, the Chinese government are being much more communicative. John, thank you for your call, and thank you for being a regular listener. We've got a phone call from the United Kingdom next. John is a new caller from Chelmsford. John, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel. Happy Chinese New Year to you.
Yes, and to you.
And the wonderful job you did for Brexit.
Thank you. Well, I've got half a feeling that the crowds, Chinese New Year crowds in London, may not be quite as big as they have been in previous years. But So, John, what's your take on this story?
Well, I've got a few friends in Chengdu in Sichuan province.
Yep.
Chinese people.
Yep.
And I was talking to them on WeChat, and the municipal government has actually advised people to stay indoors. And one of my friends said, "Well, I've just got to go out, but I'm coming back straight away," because as Xi Jinping said, it's very, very bad. They know that, and they're being quite realistic with the people in their country. But until they find out how to stop it or make a drug to actually immunise people, they've got a big problem. And it doesn't do well for the Western governments to actually play it down, especially, as you said, with 2,000 Chinese come over from Wuhan. And all they're saying is they've tested 14 people. No, they can't have done that. They must have got hold of all 2,000, but they're not telling us what's going on. It's our government that is actually being...
Well, our government, John, appears to have dithered and then U-turned, because originally, the people that were in China were going to stay there. Now there's talk of perhaps getting them out. So, it's always easy to criticise government, I guess. But, John, I found it stunning that once we knew something of the extent of this coronavirus, that people were flying into Heathrow from Wuhan and being given simply a leaflet. I mean, that just wasn't good enough, was it?
I mean, even doing the checking them for their temperature, when it's got an incubation period of 6 to 14 days, you're still not going to pick people up. They should have actually been quarantined just like you do anybody else that's coming from somewhere which has got a plague of some sort.
Yeah, no, absolutely. John, thank you very much for your call. Thank you, all of you, for your calls. In a minute, sticking with China, sticking with the Chinese theme, sticking with the Chinese government, we're going to talk about the 5G network. We're going to talk about Huawei. Should Boris Johnson, a big decision is due on Tuesday, should he commit to this? The Americans are worried about it, and increasingly British public figures are worried about it. This is separate to the health crisis, but it does concern China. It is a surveillance state. Are we really happy? We're really happy that China could have this much influence over our telecommunications. This is the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show. It's 10:30 and time for the news with Philip Chryssikos.
Home Secretary Priti Patel says government officials are closely monitoring the spread of coronavirus from China. 56 people have now died, nearly 2,000 more are infected. In the UK, all 31 tests on people suspected to have the virus have returned negative. Rescue operations continue in Turkey after at least 35 people were killed in an earthquake. 45 others have been found alive since last Friday's tremor. A 27-year-old man is being questioned after a non-league football player died in Nottinghamshire last Friday night. Jordan Synods was in defence for Matlock Town. He suffered a suspected fractured skull during a brawl in Retford. LBC weather, rain in the west, moving east later with sunny spells behind, wintry showers elsewhere, a high of 10 degrees.
This is LBC.
At UKME, our chauffeur service is 6-star. Just like the package we offer our drivers. Join the company that treats its drivers like VIPs. Apply today at ukme.co.uk.
Have you ever seen a ghost? Do you believe in the supernatural? Inside this weekend's Mail on Sunday, You magazine's paranormal special issue, packed with hair-raising stories. A night in Britain's most haunted house, what the tarot card reader saw, the children who say they have psychic powers. Free paranormal special magazine, only inside the Mail on Sunday.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you the very best London has to offer? Yes? Then Greyhound Cars, one of South London's oldest and most progressive minicab companies, want to speak to you. Spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. With a very busy day circuit, we have high demand and are now offering great bonuses and mileage rates for the very best drivers. You could pay as low as 10% commission. Start today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
Standard. Stagnant. Same old, same old. That's not how you describe London. We're, well, different. London loves bright new ideas, embraces vibrant, evolving communities, and isn't afraid of standing out. We deserve an energy company that's as different as we are, one that's fair and affordable for all Londoners. London Power, a different kind of energy company.
As a small business owner, I need to know that when I'm out on business, I'm not closed for business. I no longer need an office, just a little peace and quiet at the boardroom table, which is also the coffee shop table.
At O2, we get small businesses. That's why you can work from anywhere on the best business network. Search O2 Business or visit an O2 shop.
2019 Mobile Industry Awards terms apply. See o2.co.uk/terms.
True love lasts. Introducing the all-new Renault Clio, a car 30 years in the making. Start your Clio love story today for just $179 a month with 0% APR, now with a 5-year warranty. PCP Renault Finance, Clio Play, SEE 75, 24 months, deposit 2685, optional final payment 7714, subject to status, over 18s, T's and C's apply. Order by March 31st, retail customers at participating dealers only, warranty 100,000 miles or 5 years. Visit Renault.co.uk/warranty. Search Clio offers.
Will the retirement you get be the retirement you want? Check your state pension and see how you can build on it with a workplace or other pension. Get to know your pension at yourpension.gov.uk.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
We have got to make a big decision about 5G. Are we going to have Huawei heavily involved in this? And they've been involved in British telecommunications for some time. Other countries have been deeply concerned about their involvement. Australia have said no way, Huawei. And America, Congress back in 2012, had some very severe reservations, seeing Huawei as a front for the Chinese government, concerns about security, equally other concerns about human rights and the sheer level of the surveillance state in China. And I was fascinated seeing, the types of people who are supporting Huawei in the UK, and it's a list of the old globalists, it really is. Boris is facing a really big decision here, and I sense that pressure on him is mounting to say we shouldn't do this. Well, one of those influential voices is Tom Tugendhat, who is Conservative MP for Tunbridge and Malling and former chairman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee and running again for that same post. Tom, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you?
I am very well, and I'm looking forward to Brexit. But I have to say, Boris Johnson has a massive decision to take here. And I've spoken to congressmen and senators and others in America who are real friends of mine, and they value our intelligence sharing, they value the Five Eyes network, and they are genuinely concerned that we're about to tie up very closely on 5G with this company.
Well, look, I've spoken to senators and congressmen as well, same issue. I've also spoken, by the way, not just to MPs in Australia and senators in Australia, but two former prime ministers who are absolutely astonished that we are looking at this as an option. And I have to say, if you really want to know whether or not it's a good idea, look at another communist party and see what it's doing. The Communist Party of Vietnam, okay, not traditionally one of America's best friends, has decided not to go with Huawei and to develop their own system. There are a few indicators here that suggest that this may not be a great plan.
What is your primary concern? Is it risk to data?
Well, look, it is. I mean, the referendum that you're quite rightly proud of was all about taking control, right? But you and I both know that control isn't just about land. The fight that we had over the referendum wasn't about land. It was about standards. It was about rules. It was about regulations. Well, one of the other things that, determines sovereignty is who controls your data.
Absolutely.
And I'm always struck by the Estonian government. Now, many years ago, I used to know a guy who was the chief technology officer for the Estonian government. And he told me something quite extraordinary. He said that they'd effectively put their entire national database online, and the reason they'd done it is so that they could put it overseas, and so they've got it backed up in countries overseas. And I said, well, why have you done that? That's an incredibly expensive thing to do. He said, well, you see, when we're next invaded by Russia, because he was absolutely certain they would be at some point, we want to continue to be a people. So even if we don't have a land, we will still have, all our contracts, all our laws, all our pensions, all our wills, all the sort of things that, make up the infrastructure of a state, the bureaucracy of a state, and we can continue to be a people without a land. Now, I thought that was really interesting, because here we're looking at a similar sort of situation. Not the same, it's not the same, of course, but similar. Who controls our data will determine whether or not we are actually sovereign.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Now, I can see the pressures on Boris. On the one hand, of course, former Conservative Prime Minister David Cameron, and he and George Osborne very much lobbying over much of the last 10 years for us to do more business with China and be closer with Chinese companies. We've got a former boss of the CBI, who I notice is on the UK board of Huawei, a former boss of BP. I mean, the big global businesses and those who, it seems to me, Tom, who are the most pro-EU and the most anti-us leaving on Friday, they're all the ones that seem to want us to sign up to this. And on the other side, we have those who think, well, maybe America and the English-speaking world. I mean, what does Boris do here? Which side of the fence does he come down on?
Well, I think you can come down on, funnily enough, on both sides of that fence, because this isn't an EU, non-EU divide. If you talk to people in Germany, my opposite number in Germany, the head of the Foreign Affairs Commission in the German Bundestag, is equally as opposed to Huawei as I am. If you go to the Czech Republic, forgive me, I'm showing my age, but if you go to the Czech Republic, you will see that their government has decided against it. If you talk to French politicians, you will hear many of them having the same conversations we are. This isn't about picking the EU or not the EU, and it's not even about revisiting the decisions of 2000, to 2000, whatever it is, 2015, because those decisions were based on the idea, when we thought that the Chinese, with investment, with trade, with cooperation, would go from being a dictatorship to a more open society. Look, that hasn't happened. It turns out we were wrong. Now, look, it was a reasonable bet. It's a bet we made in various other countries that paid off. It didn't pay off in China. We need to look again at the situation and evaluate the situation as it is, not as we wish it were.
OK, and which side of the fence will Boris come down on? Come on, tell us, predict.
Well, I haven't got a clue, but I very much hope he comes down on the right side of the fence, which is to say, look, there are other options here. There's Cisco, there's Samsung, there's Fujitsu. This isn't just about the English-speaking world. It's also about, partners like South Korea and Japan, independent trading nations with whom we can do really good deals. And if we do that, then we are defending the international rules-based system of independent states, rather than opting into one of the big power blocks, in this case, China.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you very much indeed. Tom Tugendhat, Conservative MP for Tunbridge and Morning, former chairman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, and he's running again. No way, Huawei. That's what I've got to say. Doesn't make any sense at all. Why would we? Why would we take the risk? Why would we upset countries like Australia, countries like the United States of America? And as Tom Tugendhat says, there are plenty of other partners around the world who technologically can do this. I see this. I see the globalists. I see the friends of Tony Blair, the friends of David Cameron, all in love with Chinese big business. Well, it may have been very good for many of them personally, but I don't think it's in the country's interest. And this is a massive test of Boris Johnson's premiership, and we're expecting a decision on this on Tuesday. I really, really hope Boris does the right thing. Back to the coronavirus, and certainly, the phone calls that we've had already from Hong Kong, from Beijing, show there is real fear in China. My next caller is a doctor who's calling from Hounslow, and it's Kadia Lee. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel.
Welcome. As a doctor, what is your perspective on this coronavirus?
I mean, this coronavirus is not a very virulent one, as I know most of the people are made to believe. It's at the moment very mild. Whether it is going to change the structure and then become more virulent is very difficult at this moment. But I'm a doctor who's been talking about superbug pandemic since 1989. Okay, yes. I worked in pediatric intensive care, and I started seeing antibiotic-resistant infections. It's not the virus I'm worried about, because virus infection usually follows bacteria. Bacterial infection follows virus. And that is the most dangerous one, because we are running out of antibiotics. And that's why I come to you, because I have methods in which people can learn, and they can also identify infection instead of rushing to the hospital. If you go to the hospital, even though you don't have this virus, you will get it from somebody else. Yeah. So the most important thing is to prevent people getting out of the house with the symptoms.
And that, to some extent, is what the Chinese government are trying to do, isn't it? They're saying to people, yes, they're quarantining. But what happens when food runs out?
Sorry?
When people's food runs out, they have to go out and try and do something, don't they?
Yes, they have to. But the thing is, people, by the way the government is working, is putting posters and banners, it's not going to work. People are not going to see. So that's why I created an app where you should insist on people using the app first. If the app says go to the hospital, then go to the hospital. Okay. Otherwise, it will give you an option to make a phone call. All that you need is a phone call to me, like NHS 111. Speak to the doctor and reassure them, do this, stay at home. If one person comes out of the house, go to the hospital, he'll infect 824 people on the way. And if he comes to see the doctor, I am also going to die, because 3 healthcare workers will get infected. So what the hell are we doing? We are just allowing people to move around like headless chickens. Somebody has to put the foot down and say, that's enough, use the app. Everybody has got it, including internet. I've created websites where they can just put in the symptoms, and they will possibly, I cannot be 100% sure that they have coronavirus, but it's only based on symptoms.
Okay. No, very interesting. Thank you very much indeed for that. Well, that's the point being made, that, if you are infected and you catch the bus to the local hospital and you go into a full waiting room at accident and emergency, you will either spread it or you might catch it from somebody else. Yeah, I get the theory of it, but in practice, if people really do feel bad, they're going to want to get treatment of some kind. And if they've run out of food in the house, they're going to want to go shopping as well. So there are no easy answers. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is now 10:45.
Sheila Fogarty, Monday to Friday from 1 p.m.
You took your son out of his school because of knives.
His mum went through his iPad and his text messages and found disturbing message logs saying that someone at his school is going to get murdered.
If they minimise this in any way, that is really, really troubling.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
It's creeping ever closer. The 31st of January deadline for filing your tax return is just days away. It's time to act. Download EY Tax Chat now and connect with EY tax professionals to prepare and submit your tax return from just £329. Beat the deadline with minimal effort and maximum confidence. Search or download EY Tax Chat now.
As a small business owner, I need to know that when I'm out on business, I'm not closed for business. I no longer need an office, just a little peace and quiet at the boardroom table, which is also the coffee shop table.
At O2, we get small businesses. That's why you can work from anywhere on the best business network. Search O2 Business or visit an O2 shop.
2019 Mobile Industry Awards terms apply. See o2.co.uk/terms.
Fly with Cathay Pacific to over 70 destinations across Asia and Australia and move beyond the familiar. State-of-the-art cabins, world-class entertainment and award-winning service, making sure you arrive ready to make the most of whatever lies ahead. Whether it's the endless white beaches of Bali, the mesmerizing metropolis of Tokyo, or the bustling markets of Hanoi, book now at cathaypacific.com. Cathay Pacific. Move beyond.
You're in charge of hiring and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And Indeed will also give you the sticky frog, which will suddenly leap and stick to the face of the perfect hire. Okay, there's no sticky frog, but there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
Have you ever seen a ghost? Do you believe in the supernatural? Inside this weekend's Mail on Sunday, You Magazine's paranormal special issue, packed with hair-raising stories. A night in Britain's most haunted house, what the tarot card reader saw, the children who say they have psychic powers. Free paranormal special magazine, only inside the Mail on Sunday.
Okay, everyone, circus. I want to see you all give it 110%. There's no rest yet until you sweat. 20 push-ups. Go! Proper ones. Feel the burn.
Or leave the motivation to Vitality. Take out our life insurance and you could save up to 40% on a Garmin fitness watch to help you keep an eye on your activity levels, however you stay active. Now that's real motivation. Just search Vitality Life. Life's better with Vitality. Variable discount. Postage and packaging terms and conditions apply.
The spacious new Vauxhall Vivaro is big on cargo space, so you won't fill it up as often. It also has class-leading fuel economy, so you, won't fill it up as often. The new Vauxhall Vivaro. Limited stock now available for only £229 a month and $229 initial rental, excluding 20% VAT on a 2-year lease. Other rental periods available. Search Vivaro offer and hurry down to your local retailer. Vauxhall carries British business. Business users only. Initial rental of $228.96 plus 23 months at $228.96. Contract hire on new Vivaro edition L1 H1 1.5 Turbo D 100 PS. 20,000 total contracted miles. Limited availability, subject to status, T's and C's, 18 plus. Price excludes 20% VAT. You will not own the vehicle. Vauxhall Finance PLC. Trading as free to move lease.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Some big decisions for Boris Johnson's government. Should he get the 300 Brits in Wuhan back as quickly as possible? Does he go with Huawei with 5G? Decision expected Tuesday. And the other one that is getting bigger and bigger and bigger as a story is HS2. Regular listeners will know I have campaigned against it up and down the length of that line through 2013, 14, 15, 16. I've always thought it would go massively over budget. I don't think it makes any sense at all. And overnight, Colin Morris, former Director of Strategy for HS2, he's even suggested that the $100 billion bill could finish up being significantly higher and has described the whole project as being not fit for purpose. Well, somebody this will not particularly surprise is Liam Halligan, columnist for The Telegraph and The Sun and presenter of Dispatches last year. HS2, the great train robbery. Liam, good morning.
Morning to you, Nigel.
Liam, I mean, I've been campaigning against this for years. You've more than done your bit on this. Are we at last being listened to?
Well, I certainly hope so. When I made that Dispatches film last year, even I was shocked after having followed the HS2 debate for many years as you have. But when I really got my teeth into it, to learn about the extent of the cost overruns, there are whistleblowers literally falling out the trees. There's so much concern about the scale of the cost overruns on this project, a project which actually, as you say, is almost obsolete before it's even been built. And what I wanted to stress in my Dispatches film last year is that actually it's so much better, Nigel, if you're going to spend lots of money on the trains, and I want to see money spent on the trains, to spend not on a sort of vanity project linking London to Birmingham, turning Edgbaston and Solihull into part of the commuter belt for the capital.
Yeah, because London becomes easier to get to, doesn't it?
That's right. That's the experience of high-speed rail around the world.
Yes.
It strengthens the big cities rather than the regional centres. What we need to do, Nigel, if we are going to spend big on the trains, and we need to do that, we need to build better links between and into our regional capitals, particularly in the north. Try getting from Manchester to Leeds at rush hour. Try getting from try getting from the smaller towns around Leeds, Manchester, Sheffield and York into those bigger cities. That's what we need to do. Low-key, humdrum commuter services in Bristol, in Newcastle that get people into work every day.
Yeah.
Not business class.
And what about, Liam?
Vanity projects.
What about getting to Plymouth or getting to Penzance? 5 hours to Penzance it is.
The reason this has come to the head now, Nigel, and the reason we are really getting this tsunami of senior people speaking out, and we've had the latest example on the front page of the Telegraph, the paper where I write. ITV News have done very well on this over the years. Dispatches have done very well on this over the years. It'd be nice to see the BBC pulling their socks up and really getting into the cost overruns on this project. The reason we're seeing it now is because we've already spent, say, 5 or 6 billion quid on HS2, a lot of that going on fat cat salaries at this government-owned purpose-built company. But we're about to start spending, Nigel, 5 to 6 billion quid a year for at least the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's not the billions we've spent, it's the tens of billions we're about to spend that we've got to look after. And that 5 to 6 billion a year, Nigel, that's more than we spend on the rest of the entire rail network, maintaining it
Madness.
and upgrading it every year on one single line.
And tell me, Liam, you know, Boris has not really had much of a position on this at all. I mean, do you sense at times that the power of big business, the power of the big contractors over central government is just so strong that it makes it difficult to cancel this?
Behind closed doors and in sort of low-key meetings, Boris has had a view on this. I've been in the room on the campaign trail years ago when Boris says he doesn't like HS2 because it doesn't add up. I know Dominic Cummings doesn't like HS2 because it doesn't add up. But when you get into office, yes, you've got the big property developers who have bought up land along the line. Yes, you've got the big contractors. You've got the Treasury telling you, if we don't do this, then the economy will collapse, Prime Minister. No, I'm not saying spend less on infrastructure. I'm saying spend money on infrastructure
more appropriately.
It has a much better benefit to cost ratio, which means east-west links across the north, which means local train commuter services into regional capitals, means more buses, Nigel. More buses.
No, Liam, thank you ever so much indeed. That was Liam Halligan, who made a Dispatches programme about HS2 and called it the Great Train Robbery. Messages that are coming in. Ryan says, if the Chinese are saying, if even the Chinese are admitting how bad it is, they may well have lost control. It's time to worry. And I also got one here on HS2 already. If you need to be in London half an hour earlier, just get an earlier train. Well, this is the point. It's also very worrying that what we'll finish up with actually London actually attracting even more people coming to it on a daily basis and it not benefiting Manchester or Birmingham. Back to we got a caller on HS2 already. Richard is calling from Greater Manchester. Should Boris scrap HS2, Richard?
Yes, he should, Nigel. You put this as part of your message to the people, the manifesto.
I did.
You said wasn't a manifesto, to say that it should be cancelled, and that would pay for other things within, the government control. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. And I smile now, but I didn't when you were in conversation with the great Lord Adonis, who told you, it was only 50 billion. It will probably go to 100 billion, maybe more. But what does it matter, Nigel? It doesn't matter.
I know.
And when I heard that, I was so furious, because I was in business, like you, for a long time, and I thought, how is this country being run?
I know. Now, Richard, it was a really comical moment on Friday night on LBC. Andrew Pearce was sitting in this chair, and Lord Adonis was on. And just before the 9 o'clock news in the evening, he said, we have to make sure people understand that Labour, as a party, is not frivolous with your money. And then we had the news, Richard, and after the news, Lord Adonis was introduced as the father of HS2, and he just literally, by backing HS2, had contradicted what he'd said before. Richard, I have campaigned against this for a very, very long time.
Nigel, can I please say, excuse me interrupting you, you are the greatest politician that has never become Prime Minister of this country. I changed my affections from the Blair years up to you, and I listened to you, and I listened to you in the European Parliament. I listened to people insulting you, and I came to the conclusion, and I'm not patronising you, you're one of the greatest politicians in the world.
Well, Richard, that's very sweet of you, although I don't like to be thought of as a politician. I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you. Now, this is interesting. Gordon says to me, I was a temporary Border Force passport control officer until recently. Landing cards were done away with on the 20th of May 2019. No names and addresses stored. How will the UK government even begin to find the 2,000 people that have travelled in from China? Gordon, I think the answer to that is presumably they can get that information. They can get much of that information from the airline, although the airline probably won't have an onward UK destination. I don't know the answer to that. Certainly, when you're going into the USA, you have to tell them what is the address that you're going to. And I wonder about that. Landing cards, I would have thought. We're trying to streamline things, Gordon, but maybe it's not possible. Richard in Gloucester, can you give me a quick point, please, on HS2, Richard?
Yes, well, it's a pig's ear, because there is no connection from Birmingham to Bristol, which is an equal city pair as Glasgow and Edinburgh. There are 5 electrified routes between Glasgow and Edinburgh. There's HS2 ends at a stupid terminal in Birmingham, which isn't connected to the rest of the system.
Richard, Bristol doesn't exist. Plymouth doesn't exist. Penzance doesn't exist, Gloucester the West Country, South Wales, they don't even exist. No one cares about them. All they care about is building this vanity project to go up to Manchester. Richard, thank you very much indeed. Well, by this time next week, we're going to be in February. We'll have exited the European Union. Will you be celebrating our newfound independence? As we say on the new 50p coin, peace, prosperity, friendship with all nations. Or, I'm going to ask you, whether you voted Leave or Remain, isn't it actually time we got together, marked this occasion at 11 o'clock, coming up this Friday? It's the biggest constitutional moment since Henry VIII took us out of the Church of Rome. Are you going to celebrate? Tell me. Call me on 0345 60 60 973. You can watch us on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's Newsroom at 11 o'clock, the Home Secretary says the government is investigating all options to get Britons out of the part of China at the centre of the coronavirus.
This is a fast-moving situation, and there's work taking place in government right now. Every day we're watching the situation. We're working, as I've said, with the World Health Organization, authorities in China too, to assess how we can practically give assistance, but also what other measures we will have to undertake.
Priti Patel's comments follow China warning the virus could spread further. At least 56 people are known to have died. Nearly 2,000 others have been infected. Professor Hugh Pennington from the University of Aberdeen has told LBC what experts know about coronavirus.
The common cold ones and this one in China seems to be spread primarily by the respiratory route. That is, somebody who's infected coughs up spit that's got the virus in it. Somebody else quite close by breathes it in and sets up an infection, usually in the back of the throat, the lungs, and so on. We don't know precisely yet because we haven't seen that. We've only been studying the virus for a month.
In other headlines this hour, a newly appointed member of the Grenfell Tower Inquiry Panel has stepped down. Engineer Benita Mara was facing criticism because of her links to the company which supplied the West London block's cladding. Karen Mushlini is from the survivors group Grenfell United.
It's so disrespectful to the families and the survivors to appoint somebody on the panel who has any level of affiliation with Arconic, the company, as we all know, which made the cladding, which caused the spread of the fire.
Rescue teams in Turkey say at least 35 people are now known to have died in an earthquake in the east of the country. They say 45 others have been pulled alive from the rubble following last Friday's tremor. Parents are being advised not to use 15 varieties of Cow and Gate baby food bought in Tesco. The manufacturer is recalling its 200-gram jars over concerns they may have been tampered with. Boris Johnson says the UK will become a global trailblazing country once it leaves the European Union on Friday. The Prime Minister adds he will look ahead with confidence nearly 4 years since the referendum. Separately, after being delayed for 10 months, the latest version of a 50p coin has been revealed to mark the UK's departure from the EU. Same as the original, it now has the updated Brexit departure date. It'll go into circulation on Friday. Coco Gauff's winning run at the Australian Open tennis is over. The 15-year-old has been knocked out by fellow American Sophia Kenin. LBC weather. Rain in the west, moving east, leaving sunny spells behind. Wintry showers across the northwest of Scotland, a high of 10 degrees. From Global's Newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strength and things. Strings and things and strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and things. Strings and...
Now there's a whole range of strings and things called strings and things, including cheese strings, yollies, and new cheese shapes. Find them all in the cheese and yogurt aisle.
Strings and things.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
I'm not sure I ever thought this week would happen, even though I've been campaigning for it for 27 years. In fact, more than that, to be honest with you. But for the last 27 years, I have been utterly committed to fighting, to getting the UK out of the European Union. I've done it not because I dislike Europe, far from it. I like Europe, love Europe, but I've always been suspicious of what the European Union would become, and all of my fears were proved right. Centralised, very, very bureaucratic, the big decisions not taken by people you can elect and you can get rid of, and a project that started off, and I quote Tony Blair here. Tony Blair said, the European Union used to be about peace. Now it is about power, and they want to be a global power. So I've fought and campaigned. I first put myself up for election in 1993, because how better to get the message out than to stand in elections and be part of the debate. And I've been a member of the European Union, European Parliament, when I first took my seat there in July 1999. So that's 4 different decades I've been going to Brussels and Strasbourg, and I'll be going on Tuesday. I'll be speaking in the Parliament on Wednesday. That'll be my last ever speech in the European Parliament. And at 11 o'clock this Friday, we are leaving. We have a new 50p commemorative coin, which says peace, prosperity and friendship with all nations, 31st of January 2020. It's not very original, because we had a new 50p coin when we joined back in the 1970s. But hey, I suppose you could say that in a way it closes that particular circle. Boris Johnson will have a fireside chat with the nation at 10 p.m. this coming Friday. He will also have a light show projected onto number 10 Downing Street, but you can't actually publicly access number 10 Downing Street. And generally, I think that the government's approach to this is really remarkably low-key. I, with my colleague Richard Tyson, Leave Means Leave organisation, we are having an event in Parliament Square. It'll kick off at about 9 o'clock. It'll go on until just after 11, and there'll be a bit of singing, a little bit of music, speeches, talks. It will be upbeat. It'll be fun. It won't be overtly political, and certainly not party political in any sense at all. And a large number of people have already registered to come, and I expect that number to grow. You see, I think this is such a moment that I think we should celebrate it. And whether we voted Remain or voted Leave, we ought to mark this huge moment in our history. And arguably, in terms of the UK Constitution and our relationship with the rest of the world, arguably, this is as big a move as Henry VIII taking us out of the Church of Rome 500 years ago. So I think we should celebrate this moment. I certainly think we should mark this moment, and I'm really keen to ask you, will you be celebrating? Well, even if you are, there'll be no Big Ben, because obstructionism in the House of Commons, in the civil service, has made sure that that can't happen, which is a shame. Scott is a new caller from Ayrshire. Good morning, Scott. Will you be celebrating?
Oh, definitely, Nigel.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay. And were you a Leave voter who perhaps thought this time last year it would never happen?
Definitely. I thought we were going to have to start it all again. I mean, I'm what you would call an original woke culture person.
Right.
Coming from, our eyes were opened up with, the documentary Zeitgeist back in the day.
Right.
And, I'm absolutely disgusted with the way that people have stolen the term woke to have, a kind of fascist, radical view. You're entitled to any opinion as long as it's our opinion. And
yes, that's right. This is the crowd, Scott, that talk about diversity the whole time, but not diversity of opinion. I've sensed, Scott, even with that group, I have sensed that now there is an inevitability. I mean, there's one last hurdle. There will be a vote in the European Parliament. It'll take place at 5 p.m. UK time on Wednesday, but I think, that's a formality. But I think, Scott, I don't know about you, and maybe it's very different in Scotland, but I sense there is now an acceptance from the vast majority of people on the Remain side that this is happening. It's the democratic will of the people. And I even sense, Scott, a bit of optimism around.
Well, surely, people have got to be looking into the facts and figures that are coming out and realising that this was Project Fear 2.0, as we call it in Scotland. It was used the first time for our independence vote.
Yes.
I seen the exact same argument being, it was regurgitated. They were trying to... it was disgusting lies from every side of the media.
Yes, we're going to run out of medicines and all the rest of it. Fear-mongering. Fear-mongering. But I think, Scott, in the case of a Scottish referendum, the economic fear-mongering, I think in the end a lot of people believed it, whereas while some believed it with the European question, fewer did. Scott, I thank you. I'm going to move on. Loads of people want to have their say. Are you going to be celebrating? Are you going to be marking this big moment in British history? And I'm hoping a very big moment for the future shape of Europe too. Calling from Finland is Phil. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Nigel. Unfortunately, I cannot share your optimism in the slightest. This is catastrophic decision by the British people. It's based on emotion, large emotion, and misplaced emotion at that, and also populism. I mean, Nigel, the world is going to change, or is changing massively. And, it's all very well you talk about your Anglo-Saxon re-engaging with our Anglo-Saxon world and stuff like that. Quite frankly, where the Saxons...
I've never, ever said that, Phil.
Yes, you have.
No. I've talked about... Hang on. I have talked about our close-knit relationship with the English-speaking world, and I've certainly referred specifically to the Commonwealth and the USA in that, but not to the exclusion of others. Phil, very interesting, you said populism. What is populism, Phil?
Populism is just appealing, essentially, to easy remedies, easy apparent remedies that sound good, have good sound bites. Basically, has good sound bites. I mean, ultimately, as I said, Europe. I've travelled extensively. I've lived and worked in 4 different European countries. Nigel, they're the same as us. You meet the same people. You can walk down your own street and you'll meet loads of British people you don't get on with. But you've made it into an issue of essentially nationalism. And this is rubbish in this modern world. We are not America. We are a sixth of their size. We are a tiny world. We're going to get smaller because the United Kingdom, rightfully now, has no, defined agenda, if you like. So this is catastrophic because Europe is a bulwark, if you like, to what is going to happen. We've got the decline in the American empire, the rise of a very questionable Chinese empire. There are 3 times as many Cantonese speakers, Mandarin speakers, as there are whole English speakers in the whole of the world. This is, the world is going to change. And you have no idea what you've done.
Phil, the world is changing. It's breaking up into smaller units. It's been doing it almost every year.
How many countries are as democratic as Britain? We in the rest of the world, you're talking about re-engaging with. You talk about re-engaging with the Commonwealth. You wouldn't want to re-engage with a fraction of those countries. In the index of corrupt countries, most of them are in the bottom half. Almost all of the European Union countries are in the top half, and most of them are in the top 30 or 40.
Well, Phil, I've got a feeling. Actually, what the UK is doing is going to lead the way for the rest of Europe. That we will not have the European Union as it's currently structured, with its appalling institutions, completely remote. I mean, Ursula von der Leyen is the most important person in the European Union. Phil, I wonder if we knocked on doors in your street in Finland, how many people would even know who she is? Isn't it better, Phil? Isn't it better, Phil? And I'm not against having a strong European cooperation, but wouldn't it be better to have the nation-state, the democratic nation-state, as the essential building block and not what we have in Brussels?
Modern world, Nigel, it might make sense to you on an island. Germany borders 9 different states. It makes nonsense for them. And this is what you don't understand, all you Brexiteers don't understand, how different it is. And we should not look at it because borders essentially, within an area where we are culturally similar. You've made an issue. I'll tell you what, Nigel, the big problem with this is immigration. There was always a confusion between, if you like, European immigration and immigration from outside Europe, where it was culturally dissimilar. Most people, but you can't say that because you're then accused of being racist. I haven't got a racist body in my bone, Nigel, but I am a culturalist. I do appreciate European Western culture. And that is where most people complain. And because of the conflation between the two, it's been dragged out and immigration's become this big...
But it's not... But Phil, it's not just the Brits saying this. I mean, today, there's a major set of regional elections taking place in Italy, in the Emilia-Romagna region, the richest region in Italy. And it is... I'm not saying it will happen, but it's possible that the League, headed by Mr. Salvini, will break the Democratic Party. You've run it since virtually the end of World War II. I mean, Phil, the point I'm making to you is this. There is big change taking place across the whole of Europe.
Yes, exactly. But that's not good change, Nigel. You do not want the far right and, developing, of which it could very much so, because of nationalism and misplaced, if you like, patriotism.
But Phil, we don't want to be run by Juncker and all these people that we can't vote for, we can't remove, who appear,
Nigel,
who want to impose upon us flags, anthems, police forces, armies. Phil, do you understand why Euroscepticism is growing across the whole of Europe?
Because it doesn't understand Europe. I agree. You're absolutely right. And one thing I did agree with you, very much so, is all very well for Remainers to say we want to remain in Europe, but what kind of... And you were right to say that. I couldn't agree with you more. But I, personally, I want to see a United States of Europe. Because I know
that
in the world You know, this is the way things are going.
Phil,
and we will only have the might to...
the might? Do you want another war, Phil?
No, that's exactly what I don't want.
So the might, the power, the might, the army, the military strength, and run by people.
What's the army going to do, Nigel? At least you've got to get 27 different countries to agree.
Phil,
okay, so
the one good thing about this conversation is the one good thing about this chat is you have come out as a supporter of the United States here. Phil, very quickly, time short. The UK population have voted for Brexit. Clearly, they've done it in a referendum. They've done it in a European election. They've done it in a general election. Do you now accept that it's happening?
Obviously, legally, and it is going to happen now. Do I accept that as the end of the road? No way. And I can assure you that, that is the general feeling of, you go on about Remainers coming and unite. I don't want to unite with your type of people because I've got nothing in common with the Brexiteer mentality.
My type of people. Right.
And I want, yes, I actually say this, Nigel.
And if your daughter, Phil, if your daughter came home and said she was going to marry a Leaver, how would you feel?
I wouldn't think that she was actually, I'm lucky in that sense, Nigel. I don't have kids, but I do care about the kids of the future and what world they're going to live and grow up in, because it is going to change massively.
Maybe, Phil.
I wanted to
just
see
maybe,
a strong
Phil.
European
Just
Union.
maybe, Phil. I'm the broad-minded one and you're the narrow-minded one. Maybe it's the other way round.
Find out, Nigel, that's for sure.
All right, listen, it's been great. I've enjoyed talking to you. Thank you. Well, there we are. You can't win them all, and Phil, but that's fine. In a sense, he's honest. He wants a United States of Europe. Very few people in this country do. That's the direction it's going in. We're leaving. We're going to be independent. We're going to be free. We're going to be self-governing. It's a big world of opportunity. Let's celebrate. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's now 17 minutes past 11.
This is LBC.
If you started your own furniture store today, you might not call it Fishpools. But if it was $18.99 and your name was Ernest Fishpool, well, it actually was. And he actually did. These days, Fishpools in Waltham Cross is one of the largest furniture stores in the southeast, with a stunning range of on-trend designs. Get up to 50% off in our winter sale and see our furniture and home accessories in-store and at fishpools.co.uk. That's a website, Ernest?
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
Word in the woods is that three little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with the big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies!
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
How much money will you get when you sell your car?
11,000. 12,000.
12,600.
£13,000.
Wouldn't it be great if you could see offers from online buyers and specialist car dealers all in one place? Motorway.co.uk is the comparison site to sell your car. With Motorway, it's easy to compare offers and find your best deal. You could get up to £1,000 more. Go to motorway.co.uk, the easy way to sell your car for more.
Motorway.co.uk. January is tough enough without a broken boiler. Keep your home warm and working this winter with 2 years interest-free credit and your boiler installed by one of our expert engineers. Plus, you'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and we can even quote by video call after work or on weekends. Get a quote by the 29th of February, and you can also get £200 off a new boiler, or £400 off for our existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
My lorry's already delivering on the low emission zone's tougher standards that come into effect across Greater London from the 26th of October 2020 to help clean up our toxic air. Diesel-engined heavy lorries, buses, coaches, motorised caravans, horse boxes, and large vans and minibuses all need to meet the low emission zone's new Euro 6 standard. Make sure you're on board with these changes. Like me.
Search low emission zone to check your vehicle. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
We are leaving at 11 p.m. on the 31st of January, and it marks the point of no return. Is this something to celebrate? Certainly, is it something to mark? And my last caller, Phil, he can't accept it. He thinks it's a total catastrophe, but most people are celebrating it. Obi says to me, as a Labour Brexiteer, I will celebrate on a different day because I can't celebrate on the same day as Boris. That's the level to which I dislike him. Oh, Obi, please, we got to move beyond this. This is a moment in our history. Now, somebody who in the most remarkable way has moved beyond all of this is Nigel Nelson, political editor of the Sunday Mirror, writes for Sunday People too. And this is what Nigel Nelson has written in today's newspaper. He's talking about Friday, and he says, it ends the argument over Brexit once and for all. The most divisive event since Roundheads clashed with Cavaliers. Brexit set father against son, sister against mother, broke down friendships. It needn't have been that way. I am a Labour Remainer, in love with a Tory Brexiteer. 2 weeks ago, we married in Finland, sealing our coalition in -5 temperatures. Claire campaigned for vote leave, and she's on the Tory parliamentary candidates list, whereas I have been for 46 years a socialist and in love with the European project. What can I say, Nigel and Claire? Congratulations on your wedding. There you are. It is possible. Leavers and Remainers can not only get together, and they can do so this Friday if they choose to, but they can also accept that it's done. It's time to move on. The war is over. Now, I've got a caller from Helsinki in Finland, no doubt prompted by Phil. A new caller, someone who's picked up the phone in response. Jyrki, good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. It's really nice to speak in with you.
Very good. Now, you're obviously a native Finn.
Yes, that's correct.
So according to my previous caller, you know, everyone in Europe thinks we're cretins, we're idiots, we're leaving this wonderful club. How do you see it?
I'd say for this, it's utterly rubbish. I think you are doing wonderful thing. You're going to get your independence back.
Yes.
And when we think about what's more important to be independent, if you are not independent, you don't have practically nothing. My country has a history, interesting history with Russia, especially, and we thought of freedom, we got our independence, and then we went fucking up things and get into the EU. And I said that's been a terrible mistake, and
So Jyrki, would you like? Let me ask you. Would you like Finland to leave the European Union?
Absolutely.
Fin exit, yeah?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
If the
I'm
UK...
not the only one who's thinking the way, you know.
No, I think I think you're right. And the other day, I was in France, and a small crowd of people came to me and said, goodness me, we are so jealous of you. And I sense all over Europe, we want to be friends and trade together, but not be run by Brussels. Jyrki, great call. Thank you very much indeed. Tony says, hi, Nigel. Corks will be popping around the country. Get the party started. Well, I tell you what, some people out there are absolutely thrilled. So yesterday morning, I was shopping locally, and I was astonished that a lady walked up to me with a bag and gave me a gift. It was a bottle of English sparkling wine. She did assure me that she had paid for it in the shop, and I couldn't believe it, and that shows how happy some people are. And to Joanne and Brett Wilson, thank you very much indeed for that. Linda says, no, I shall not be celebrating on the 31st. How about a little bit of consideration for the huge numbers of people who don't want this? How about trying to heal the divisions rather than proposing some massive show of triumphalism? Linda, this is happening. When we went into the EU, it was marked with all sorts of massive celebrations. We're leaving it, and frankly, the most overt display of it is a happy party in Parliament Square that will not be party political. But there is one thing, Linda, I'm going to suggest to you that we do celebrate, and that is this. Brexit is a victory of ordinary folk, because just 10 years ago, the entire establishment, every political party, virtually every MP, every newspaper group, everybody supported staying in the European Union. Some thought we could amend it and change it. And the whole movement to leave the EU was a grassroots movement that everybody mocked and derided, and particularly those like me that were involved in it, and said would never, ever achieve its goal. Well, it has. And this actually, what we're really celebrating is the fact that despite its faults, our British democratic system actually works. In the end, the people are the masters and those in Westminster are the servants. And Brexit proves that, and that, I think, is something we really should celebrate. Let's go to James, who's a new caller from Manchester. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning. Welcome.
So very, very well done, sir.
Thank you. Will you be celebrating, James?
Celebrating? I wouldn't call it celebrating. I'd go way beyond celebration.
What have you got planned, James? And am I invited?
Well, sadly, there are only a number of parties that I can find. One in Warrington, one in Ashton, etc., that are truly Brexit parties.
Yes.
Celebrations.
Yeah.
However, a friend of mine and I are getting together, and we'd originally thought we would get a bottle of champagne.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But then I thought about that, and coming back to your mention there of the English sparkling wine.
Yeah.
We decided on that instead. Now, strangely enough, some of the English sparkling wines, in blind taste tests in Paris, by 14 sommeliers, were thought to be French by the French wine tasters.
Because they're really, really good, James, aren't they?
Because they are excellent. And because originally the vines that champagne is grown from was originally stolen from the South Downs by none other than Dom Perignon.
Is that right? I know Dom Perignon invented the champagne process.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the source of the vines, but hey, maybe you're right. James, have a great party, have a great celebration. Steve says to me, if Big Boris won't let Big Ben bong for Brexit, why don't we all go out and buy a bell and ring ourselves in next Friday, or ring ourselves out, really. That's what I'm going to do. Elaine says, what is wrong with these Remainers? We voted and won. We had a referendum and won. They're a disgrace, like babies not getting their own way and throwing their rattles out of the pram. Sheila is calling from Arbroath in Scotland. Good morning, Sheila.
Morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
Before I say my comment, I'm just going to say that I have a huge respect for you because you're a very intelligent man.
But
here comes the but.
Okay, I'm waiting, Sheila. The floor is yours.
Okay. You recognise democracy, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Scotland voted to remain.
Scotland is part of the United Kingdom, Sheila. You had a referendum on that too.
To remain, Nigel.
Sheila, Scotland is part of the United Kingdom.
Seriously, off the back of that,
hold on.
If democracy is recognised, then the independence vote should be given again.
Sheila, you had an independence vote. You voted by a large margin.
6 years ago, Nigel. That's a long time ago.
But
and
Alex
certainly
Salmon,
a long time
but
for
Alex
people to
Salmon
change their mind.
but Alex Salmon said it was a once-in-a-generation choice. 6 years is not a generation,
No.
Sheila.
There's a lot of things that have changed here now, Nigel, and we will not be celebrating on Friday. The only thing that I'll be celebrating on the 31st of January is the fact that I left my ex-husband 3 years ago.
Well, there you are. There's always a reason. Sheila, we will come back to this Scottish debate. We will come back to it again and again over the course of the next year. I'm going to have to love you and leave you because it is now 11:30 and it's time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Health officials in China admit the ability of coronavirus to spread is getting stronger, adding the incubation period can last up to 14 days. 56 people have so far died. The number infected is nearly 2,000 more. The Home Secretary says the UK will not align with European Union rules after Brexit. Ahead of exit day this Friday at 11 p.m, Priti Patel says the country will take back control of its laws, money and borders and will make its own free trade agreements. A recall's out for Cow & Gate baby food over concerns it may have been tampered with. It affects all varieties of the 7-month plus version bought from Tesco in 200-gram jars. LBC weather. Rain in the west, moving east, leaving sunny spells behind. Wintry showers across northwest Scotland, a high of 10 degrees.
This is LBC.
Ah, Socrates, solved the hearing aid paradox yet?
No, Plato, I still don't understand how a sale of tiny hearing aids can also be massive.
It's simple relativity.
Oh, shut up, Albert.
But it's true. Specsavers have tiny hearing aids with advanced Bluetooth technology, and now you can save a massive £400 on selected hearing aids, like a mouse relative to an elephant, yeah?
A mouse?
The hearing aid sale at Specsavers. Tiny hearing aids, massive savings. Terms and conditions apply. Sale ends 31st of January. Ask in store for details.
Okay, people, let's get moving! All together with me now. That's it! You are doing great! G-R-E-A-T! Woo!
Or leave the motivation to Vitality. Take out our life insurance and you could save up to 40% on a Garmin fitness watch to help you keep an eye on your activity levels, however you stay active. Now that's real motivation. Just search Vitality Life. Life's better with Vitality. Variable discount. Postage and packaging terms and conditions apply.
My lorry's already delivering on the low emission zone's tougher standards that come into effect across Greater London from the 26th of October 2020 to help clean up our toxic air. Diesel-engined heavy lorries, buses, coaches, motorised caravans, horse boxes and large vans and minibuses all need to meet the low emission zone's new Euro 6 standard. Make sure you're on board with these changes, like me.
Search low emission zone to check your vehicle. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Sharing a Lebanese dining experience is always an extraordinary occasion at Crocker's Folly. Your intimate meal, celebration or corporate event will create amazing memories for up to 200 people. If you're hungry for a unique dining experience that's the talk of the town, there's a table waiting for you at Crocker's Folly, a member of the legendary Marouche Restaurant Family Group on Aberdeen Place, St John's Wood. Book now at marouche.com.
Oh my days, it's storming the charts at 169.
And last over the line, number 169.
You're 169 in line to the throne.
The number 169 never screamed going places until now. Get the Toyota Igo X-Play for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go, Igo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Igo X-Play over 48 months, £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of March 2020. £3,311.25p optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Will you be celebrating at 11 o'clock this coming Friday? I certainly will. And I think even those that don't like it very much are increasingly becoming accepting of it. The royal family, I haven't discussed this week. Some polling out during the week indicating support for the royal family, particularly among younger generations, beginning to fall. My feeling is that Harry and Meghan have done the monarchy a great deal of disservice. Prince Charles, big interview in today's Sunday Times. I'm a peacemaker, says Charles. I try to bring people together. Comment here from Charles, talking about Iran. Obviously, I would like to go to Iran, said the Prince. He says, I know that Iran has been such an important part of the world for so many centuries and has contributed so much to human knowledge, culture, poetry and art. They're remarkable people. I've always been fascinated by Islamic culture, the architecture and craftsmanship. Charles, Iran is run by a radical theocracy who behead people, crucify people, and when people protest because they want to be free and democratic, they get massacred for doing so. You going to Iran, all that would do is help legitimise this appalling administration. And I really, the Queen, of course, would never do anything quite so stupid. And I really think the Prince of Wales needs to wise up, or he will end up doing the monarchy a very great deal of harm. Keith says to me, big fireworks display, Coulsdon, 11 p.m. Friday. Thanks, Nigel, for giving us back our country. I'd love to be in Coulsdon, Keith, but I'm in Parliament Square and we were not able to get permission for a proper fireworks display. Hard though we tried. Sean says, this week I'm sending 27 letters to random addresses to each of the EU member states stating that the people of the UK are their friends. We love the people of Europe. We'll always be their friend. Sean, this is not two fingers up to everybody south of Calais, I promise you, but it is an absolute rejection of something that we joined, being told by our leaders was a common market, turned into a European Union, and piece by piece, we've lost our ability to govern ourselves and be a proper country. It's a rejection of that, not of the European people. Joseph is calling from St Bees in Cumbria. Joseph, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel.
Are you in celebratory mood, Joseph?
No, not entirely. I was a few months too young to vote in the referendum, but had I been old enough, I would have voted Remain. Then I shifted to becoming a Leaver, back to a Remainer, and now I'm just kind of an exhausted observer.
You've been on quite a journey, Joseph, haven't you? You've been playing ping pong with this from the sounds of it.
Essentially, yes. I won't be celebrating Brexit in and of itself. I recognise that there are opportunities in it, and I hope that they are realised, but I won't be celebrating it in and of itself. What I will be celebrating is just that we have a direction now. Yes. We're actually going somewhere.
Yes, and I think the sort of 3.5 years of the political equivalent of trench warfare is over. I think there's more optimism out there, Joseph, in the country, and whilst there's a lot to sort out later, of course there is a hell of a lot to sort out, this is a moment in history that should be marked, Joseph, isn't it?
Yes, marked, whether it turns out for better or worse. It is a pivotal moment in the UK's history, and we're all waiting to see how it turns out.
We're going to be a democratic nation, Joseph. We are going to be in charge. Thank you for your call. Barry is a new caller from Bournemouth. Barry, good morning.
Morning, Nigel. Nice to speak to you again. First time on the radio, but when you came to Christchurch, which is just near Bournemouth, we did have a pint with you.
Oh, very good. There's a few people could say that, Barry. but I'm very pleased we did. So tell me, Barry, you'll be having a pint, and then will you on Friday night?
We will. My wife and I will be popping a cork, but a quick story about this. Back in the days of UKIP, the ladies used to get together. There's about a dozen of them, and they called themselves the Lady Kippers, very strong Brexiteers. UKIP disbanded, so they all kept together and still see each other. Now we joined your new party, and on Friday we will not, this is the we, all of us, not be able to get up to London. And so what we're doing is my wife and I will be popping a cork, but Saturday morning, 20 of us going down to the only place we could get a sort of a table big enough will be our local golf course. So where there's 20 of us,
for lunch.
We'll be celebrating Saturday morning, but we'll be with you Friday evening in spirit.
Terrific, Barry. Thank you very much indeed, and great to hear someone I've met ringing up. It happens quite a lot these days. Chris is calling from Richmond. Chris, are you going to celebrate on Friday?
Well, I don't see why I would, really, but, I mean,
I mean, two reasons really, but particularly I'm interested in medicines. Right, I've had a niece who suffered leukemia and is lucky to be alive because of innovative treatment. A father who died of bladder cancer. Nigel, do you really think that cancer patients waiting for innovative treatments have anything to celebrate once we leave the European Union and we walk away from the EMA? Anything at all to celebrate?
Chris, I'm not sure. I mean, are you talking about?
Let me explain.
Please
Nigel.
do.
I don't know how much you know, because I know you've been quite bitterly critical of the pharmaceutical industry. Right. At the moment, any pharmaceutical company has to get one license for any product across 27 countries or 28 countries. Once we extract ourselves from the European Union, that organisation then has to get approval again in the United Kingdom. Now, where are they going to prioritise, particularly biotechnology companies, where are they going to prioritise approval? In the European Union or the United Kingdom? Market is 240 million or 60 million? Where would you put your money first?
Chris, I've met the head, and I have been critical of the pharmaceutical industry, and I am critical of the prices we pay for many of our drugs. I've met one of the head lobbyists for the pharmaceutical industry who says whatever form of Brexit we have, there will be no problem. Chris, this is not a time to fearmonger.
No, that's not an answer.
The answer is the senior lobbyist for the pharmaceutical industry says that whatever form of Brexit we finish up with, ultimately there is not going to be a problem. And there are some that argue we may be able to open ourselves up, and we may find getting in drugs that are cheaper from other parts of the world easier. Chris, this is all fear-mongering. We can't get drugs, we can't do this, we can't do that. Either way, it's happening, Chris, isn't it?
If it's fear-mongering, why was the government talking about airlifting medicines in like we were?
Because it was a Remainer government. It was a Remainer government pretending to be leavers.
Right.
Teresa...
That's what I said. No, I want you to answer this specific question on air. Simple question. You're a business. You've got a market of 240 million. Significant cost of applying for a license. It costs hundreds of thousands of pounds to get approval because you've got a test, etc.
Chris,
what are you going to go for? No, I want a straight answer.
Answer
the question.
This is my third time of trying. Interrupt me again, I'll cut you off. You will go to the most competitive place. That's where you'll go to. And the whole point.
What do you mean by
Goodbye, Chris. Thank you very much indeed. Have a wonderful Sunday. Let's go to David, who's a new caller from Belfast. David, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you today?
I'm okay. No,
sorry.
I suspect any celebration. I mean, Northern Ireland.
Nigel,
I'm not expecting big passes.
No, I would love to be celebrating with you next week.
Yep.
But I can't.
Mm-hmm.
We have been annexed from the UK. We have a big border down the Irish Sea.
Yes.
We have still an open border with the EU and the rest of the world. So what have I got to celebrate?
David?
Tell me.
No, David, look, I think that what Boris Johnson did with the deal was to betray promises that have been made to Northern Ireland. I don't think there is actually no other way of putting it. And I feel for you. I feel for you. But what he did do, what he also did, David, as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is say we will not have regulatory alignment and we will sort all this out in 2020. Now, I agree. I think Northern Ireland is in a very difficult position, but you are still part of the United Kingdom, and this is a big moment in history, and all is not lost as far as Northern Ireland is concerned, David. However bad a deal may look right now, if we have a firm government, things can get better.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've sat on some of the Brexit panels right up to the last one was the EU settlement scheme. It's just what I do, but that's by the by. We have, for instance, Nigel, how in the future, when this is all settled in about a year's time, how would I be expected to get to the UK, knowing that there's an open border with us, with Northern Ireland and the rest of the world?
And this, of course, you
see what I'm saying?
No, I do see what you're saying, and this is the whole business of checks. Are there going to be checks on goods going back and forth? And you're raising the prospect, potentially, could there be checks on people? Well, the thing about Northern Ireland to the rest of the UK, David, is, of course, that you have to do it by boat, you have to do it by plane, so you actually have to register your name anyway. So I do not see you being asked for your passport within the United Kingdom. Look, there are many issues to sort out. David, if I were you...
One thing, Nigel, let me ask one thing.
Yes.
We have two fiscal economies, one in Northern Ireland, one in the Republic, EU. So what happens is we have two different types of health service, everything. We will have no checks on people coming in. People will still be able to come in and enjoy all the UK benefits, and we are quite under serious pressure at the minute. And with no new infrastructure, I'm just wondering, we look, UK, GB, they can control their borders. We can't.
David, you've been left...
The new border will be at...
You've been left in a very difficult position. You've been left in a very difficult position.
It would be nicer for a bit of help.
Yeah, well, look, you are going to need a lot of help over the course of the next year. I understand that. I get that. It was perhaps one of the absolute worst aspects of the deal. Since the deal, the UK government are talking tough and talking confident. Let's hope they keep to their word. David, thank you. This is the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, and it's now 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
Boris Johnson has been warned that he's on course for a diplomatic war with Donald Trump over the Huawei issue. In a post-Brexit Britain, don't we need a trade deal with America? And are we handing too much power to China?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
Play along with our 10-second teaser. Ready? True or false? More Monopoly money is printed in the US every year than real money. The answer is true. Very handy for buying Mayfair. If you got that right, you must be pretty smart. So you'll know who to choose for your business accounting, audit and tax affairs. Search Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for business.
Have you ever seen a ghost? Do you believe in the supernatural? Inside this weekend's Mail on Sunday, You Magazine's paranormal special issue, packed with hair-raising stories. A night in Britain's most haunted house, what the tarot card reader saw, the children who say they have psychic powers. Free paranormal special magazine, only inside the Mail on Sunday.
I am a force for good.
I am a force for courage.
And for calm.
I am a force for safety.
For fairness.
For leadership.
I am a force for the future.
For compassion.
For my community.
I am a police officer.
And I am a force for all.
Be one of the 20,000 new police officers and be a force for all that you believe in. Search Join the Police.
It's how London buys its cars. Car giants.
If you've been holding out for that perfect car, do yourself a giant favour and get down to the Car Giant Winter Sale. With massive price reductions on thousands of ULEZ compliant vehicles. Enjoy giant savings in our biggest sale of the year. The Car Giant Winter Sale, now on. Search Car Giant.
It's how London buys its cars. Car Giants.
Many people find their memory changes as they age. For most, it's a natural part of aging. For some, however, it could be an indication of something more serious. For some, it could be Alzheimer's disease. St Pancras Clinical Research is conducting a trial of an investigational drug for early-stage Alzheimer's. If you are between the ages of 50 and 90, have a study partner and would like more information, please contact St Pancras Clinical Research at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's St Pancras Clinical Research at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com to hear more about this study.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
Here you are, it's January again.
Nuh-uh. This is 2020, the year of the boss. The year you leave your same old job and boss the business of your #dreams. And with a 3 business plan, you get exclusive benefits from FreshBooks, Moo, WeWork, and Wix. Plus, you can get unlimited data, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost. So you can ride the wave of new biz like an absolute pro.
Get a plan fit for a boss, because 3 means business, just like you. Compatible device required. See 3.co.uk/5G.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
We're leaving, it's clear, although Steve says to me, are you absolutely sure that the European Parliament will vote for this on Wednesday? Yes, I am absolutely sure, but I mean, stranger things have happened. If they did vote against, it would veto the whole agreement. But it isn't going to happen. So there's a bit of certainty there. One country in which there is absolutely no political certainty at the moment is Italy, who have a very important set of regional elections taking place today. And to help talk us through it is Christopher Lamb, the Rome correspondent for The Tablet. Christopher, good morning.
Good morning.
Please explain to LBC listeners why today's regional elections really do matter.
Well, they're very important elections in the region of Emilia-Romagna, which is the home of Parmesan cheese and Ferrari. It's one of the wealthiest regions of Italy, and for many, many years it's been centre-left in its politics. But that could all change because it's neck and neck between the centre-left party and Matteo Salvini's Northern League. And to give your listeners a sense of the magnitude, it is like the Red Wall in Italy coming down.
Absolutely.
A bit like the Brexit Party sweeping the city of Manchester in elections. That's what we're looking at.
Yes, it is that big, isn't it? And of course, the coalition government there, the lead, and the Five-Star Movement, a key part of that. Their leader resigned this week. If Salvini wins overnight, does it perhaps bring us close to an Italian general election?
Well, I think it puts huge pressure on the coalition government, which is, as you say, between the Five-Star and the centre-left party. If the centre-left cannot hold Emilia-Romagna, there are big questions about how they can continue to govern, and I think it will spark a huge political crisis in Italy. And I think what we're seeing in the country, as we have for a number of years, is this rise of populism, populist nationalism in Salvini's party, but also a kind of comeback from the left with the movement known as the Sardines, who are against Italy's kind of trend to populism under Salvini. And so it is a huge amount of uncertainty, but it's fascinating and very dramatic times.
It certainly is. Christopher, thank you very much. That was Christopher Lamb, Rome correspondent of The Tablet. And when you wake up tomorrow morning, it may well be that the Democratic Party have held this region of Italy, but it could equally be that the League under Matteo Salvini have won it, and it would be just like, as Christopher said, those seats in the north being won by Boris at the last election and shocking everybody. And, the soft left in trouble right across the Western world, it seems to me. Are we going to be celebrating the fact? Des says, I'm celebrating the fact I'm not as spiteful as the Remainers, who want everyone to pander to their demands, plus the fact my desire to leave the EU is being honoured. Some people run on spite. Well, and Dev goes on to thank me for my part. Well, thank you very much indeed. Andy says, as a Remainer, I am accepting of Brexit. But in the same way, I'm accepting that tomorrow will be Monday. It certainly isn't anything to celebrate, and I hope those who suffer most are those who voted for it. That's nice, isn't it? It's lovely, isn't it? It's nice to know that so many Remainers feel happy about life. What if, Andy, what if a couple of years down the road we find we're doing a lot better than the rest of Europe? What will you say then? Ian is a new caller from Stonehaven up in Aberdeenshire. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel. Nice to speak to you.
Good to speak to you.
I've got a point, but I am a supporter of the EU, but the current setup is near broken, if it isn't already broken. So I'm glad that that some changes are about to happen. But it was really I was frustrated one of your previous callers, a female caller, Sarah Sally, I think it was, but
she kept making the point, didn't she? She kept making the point that Scotland in the referendum voted to remain. But
that's fair enough. And, I recognise that. But I think a lot of people in Scotland need to be reminded of the fact that although my vote didn't count back in 2014, the main point, and the day before the actual vote, the Spanish Prime Minister, because obviously you've got the whole Catalan situation going on, made it clear that Scotland is an independent nation. He would not vote for Scotland to be part of the EU, or it would make it very difficult. And I don't know if that same position still stands today, but I'm just trying to think of other nations that would, not be so welcoming, if Scotland was an independent nation. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm totally my sort of position in terms of my sort of politics now is all over the place, because I don't favour the current sort of setup. I don't know how I'd vote if there was another independent referendum, but I think it's just a clear point that
I mean, is there any referendum, Ian?
And it was
is there any referendum that Nicola Sturgeon would accept? I mean, she's against the result of the 2014 referendum. She's against the result of the 2016 referendum. I mean, it all begins to sound a bit whiny, doesn't it?
Yeah. Listen, I've voted for the SNP over the last 20 years. Certain elections. I've only voted in one European election, and you'll be happy probably the way I voted in the last one. But I don't know. I mean, I'm totally. But it was. I'm in a mixed place just now. But it was more the point. I just wanted to make it that back in 2014, although. There's all the talk that 2/3 want to leave. It's no guarantees that it would just be if we're independent, we'd walk straight in. But I mean, I'm sure there's deals that could be done to get around that.
Here's the irony, Ian. Here's the irony: the SNP want to be independent from the United Kingdom, and then join the European Union, where they wouldn't be independent. Mind you, the EU may not have them. Ian, thank you. Going to move to Jennifer, who's calling from Ealing. Jennifer, hello.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
It's my birthday on Friday,
and
you and the 17.4 million other people couldn't have given me a better birthday present.
Terrific.
Now, if I may just bring it down to sort of the people who aren't happy with this, if you could look at it like a football match, say a cup final, and it goes to a draw, and there's a penalty kick-off, and someone loses by one goal. Now, do the winning team say, "Oh, let's call away, we mustn't celebrate because we're going to upset the other side"? No, they celebrate, and hopefully the other side say, "Well, it was a good match and we've won fairly and squarely. We'll celebrate with them." So let's hope on Friday that the dissenters, especially the sort of Blairs and the Heseltines and the Majors, who really haven't got a lot to lose unless they've got huge investments in Europe. It's the man in the street who's going to be the loser if we lose anything. Let them instead of throwing a spanner in the works, let's celebrate with us and look forward with hope, not dissension, and make it work.
Well, Jennifer, Michael Heseltine's already said there should be no celebrations as it's rubbing our noses in it. So there's going to be no grace from Michael Heseltine, I'm afraid.
Well, let him go and look at the next football match and his team wins. Will he celebrate with them?
Well, it's a bit like saying the umpire got the decision wrong, isn't it? Yeah, no, look, Jennifer...
You see, we've got to look forward, because we'll only survive if we go forward with hope and not dissension.
Yeah, but don't you think, Jennifer, generally the country actually is now pretty accepting that Brexit's going to happen?
Yes, I think they are. And but as I say, you'll always get people... I mean, let's hope there isn't any demonstrations on Friday, and because... people who don't get their own way sometimes can be very nasty.
Well, Jennifer,
we've got to come together as a country, and if they don't, it will just show what sort of ilk the people are that aren't happy for it.
I get the point, Jennifer. Happy birthday for Friday, absolutely. And I'm going to celebrate on Friday a remarkable victory of a grassroots campaign without anybody of any real power supporting it, completely on its own until 10 years ago, and suddenly it's secured this extraordinary constitutional change. I shall celebrate the fact that democracy in this country, with all its faults, still works. I'll be back tomorrow at 6. At 3 this afternoon, it's Ian Payne. But up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up, the government-owned firm behind HS2 has been accused of attempting to con Boris Johnson into giving the scheme the green light as former staff members issued explosive allegations about costs being covered up. Is HS2 the never-ending story? But first, Boris Johnson has been warned that he is on course for